I went on a blind date expecting nothing. My sister had set it up. I only agreed to make her happy, thinking it would be a pleasant but forgettable evening. Then she walked in, and something about her felt strangely familiar. We talked, we laughed. The connection was instant, the chemistry undeniable. But about 30 minutes in, she looked at me with an unreadable expression and said softly, "You don't remember me, do you?" My mind froze. Remember her from where? She leaned forward, eyes steady. We met 8 years ago. That meeting saved my life, and you have no idea it even happened. Before I tell you the rest, let me ask, do you believe some people are meant to find each other even if it takes years? Tell me what you think in the comments below. And if you love stories about second chances and unexpected connections, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next one. Now let me take you back to the date that changed everything. I thought it was just another setup, one my sister Kennedy had been trying to arrange for months. She swore she knew the perfect person for me. I finally agreed just to stop hearing about it every Sunday at family dinner. So there I was, sitting at a small Italian restaurant, waiting for someone I'd never met, expecting nothing more than polite conversation and maybe a decent meal. Then she walked in. Something in my chest tightened. I didn't even know why. She wasn't what I expected, though honestly I wasn't sure what I expected at all. Kennedy had described her as smart, funny, loves animals. But this woman, she had presence, confident, calm, graceful. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on me, and she smiled, not the nervous kind, but something warm and real. "Dylan," she asked. "That's me." "Harper," she said, still smiling. She sat down, her gaze never breaking. Most people look anywhere but at you on a first date, menus, phones, walls, but Harper looked right at me like she was reading something between the lines. "Kennedy speaks very highly of you," I said. "She speaks very highly of you too," Harper replied, "though she did mention how hard it was to convince you to show up." I laughed. She's not wrong. I've been resistant to the whole blind date thing. Bad experiences. More like no experiences. I'm usually skeptical about arranged dinners with strangers. And yet here you are. "Here I am," I said, smiling. "My sister can be very persuasive." She smiled back, a flicker of amusement in her eyes, like she was in on a secret I didn't know yet. The server arrived, red wine for her, whiskey for me. "So," she said, leaning forward, "lawyer, right?" "Corporate law," I nodded. "Incredibly boring unless you're fascinated by contract disputes and mergers." "I don't know," she said. "I think it's interesting that people's lives can change over the wording of a single sentence." I chuckled. That's actually pretty accurate. "Do you like it?" she asked, simple question, but no one ever asked it that way. I thought about it. I do. It's structured, logical, there are rules. I like knowing how things work. She smiled. "Kennedy said you're the responsible one, the planner, the one who never acts impulsively." "She's not wrong," I admitted, though I'm not sure if that's a compliment or an insult. "I don't think you're boring," she said softly. "First impressions count, right?" There was something in the way she said it, something layered, deeper. Before I could ask, the server returned with our drinks. "What about you?" I asked. "Kennedy said you're a vet." "Yeah," she nodded. "Small animals mostly. Dogs, cats, the occasional rabbit. I work at a clinic in Fishtown. It's rewarding most of the time." "Do you have pets?" "Two cats," she said, smiling. "Fitzgerald and Hemingway." "Very literary." "Fitzgerald's dramatic and needy. Hemingway's stoic and occasionally violent." I laughed, very on brand. "How long have you been at the clinic?" 5 years, she said. "Kennedy and I met when she transferred there. We clicked right away, same dark humor, same low tolerance for people who treat pets like accessories." "She mentioned you're one of the best diagnosticians she's worked with," I said. Harper looked surprised. "She said that?" "She said you have this intuition, that you can tell what's wrong before the tests come back." She smiled modestly. "I just pay attention. Animals can't tell you what hurts, so you have to watch closely, their breathing, their posture, what they avoid. It's all communication, just not verbal." "That's a skill most people don't have," I said. "Can you read people the same way?" "In work, yes. In life, not so much," I admitted. "I tend to take people at face value." "That's not a bad thing," she said. means you're not cynical or maybe just a little oblivious. We both laughed and it didn't feel like a first date anymore. But still, there was something familiar about her. Have we met before? I asked finally. Her eyes shifted slightly, just enough for me to notice. Why do you ask? I don't know, you just seem familiar. She took a slow sip of wine. Interesting, she said, keep thinking about it, maybe it'll come to you. Before I could say more, the server returned to take our orders. We both chose pasta, her carbonara, me bolognese. Conversation flowed easily after that about growing up in Philadelphia, about work, about how strange it feels to reach your 30s and still be figuring life out. She asked the kind of questions that made you think, and she listened, really listened, like she'd known me for years. 40 minutes later, over another round of drinks, she leaned back and asked quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you fly a lot for work?" "Not much anymore," I said, "a few times a year." "Do you like flying?" I hesitated, strange question, but something in her tone made me answer honestly. "Not really, I was in a flight once that went wrong, mechanical issue, severe turbulence, we had to make an emergency landing, everyone was fine but it shook me." Her expression didn't change but I could feel it. Something was coming. And that's when she said it. "Dylan, I was on that flight." I saw her hands tighten slightly around her wine glass. "When was this?" she asked quietly. "About 8 years ago, why?" She stayed silent for a long moment, just looking at me. Then she smiled, not the warm smile from before, but something softer, almost sad. "You don't remember me, do you?" My heart did something strange, a skip, a stutter. "What?" "We've met before, Dylan, 8 years ago, on a flight that had to make an emergency landing." The noise of the restaurant faded to background static. I stared at her, trying to force the memory into focus. 8 years ago, that flight. I remembered the fear, the turbulence, the captain's voice telling us to prepare for emergency procedures. I remembered the woman sitting next to me. "You were in the window seat," I said slowly. "I was." "You were terrified, you were shaking and crying, and she nodded softly. "You held my hand for 30 minutes, you talked to me, kept me calm, you told me about your family, your childhood, your firm, your dreams, you made me focus on your voice instead of the fact that we might die." The memory returned in fragments, her younger face, pale with fear, her trembling hand in mine, and the way she looked at me when the plane finally touched down safely, like I had saved her life, when really I'd just been trying to distract both of us from our own terror. "I tried to find you," I said quietly, "after we landed, but you disappeared. There was so much chaos, people everywhere, emergency crews, families. When I turned around, you were gone." "I know," she whispered. "I ran, I was so shaken up I just needed to get out of there. By the time I calmed down, I realized I didn't even know your last name, just Dylan. I thought about finding you, but it felt impossible." We sat in silence, processing the impossibility of it all. 8 years. And now here we were, set up by my sister, who had no idea we'd already met under the strangest circumstances imaginable. "I can't believe it's you," I finally said. "I've thought about you sometimes, wondered if you were okay, if that night affected you as much as it did me." "It did," she said softly. "I didn't fly again for almost 2 years. When I finally tried, I had a panic attack in the terminal and had to go back home. Took a lot of therapy to get through it." "I'm so sorry, I never knew it was that bad for you." "It wasn't your fault, honestly, it would have been worse if you hadn't been there. You helped me more than you know. I wish I'd found you after, I wish I'd gotten your number." "Would you have called?" "Yes," she smiled faintly, "absolutely." "I would have answered," I said. The server came by to ask about dessert, but neither of us noticed any more. The restaurant, the people, the city outside, it all faded away. There was just Harper and the unbelievable fact that the universe had given us a second chance at something I thought was gone forever. "This is insane," I whispered, "completely insane." "Your sister has no idea, does she?" "None, you recognized me the second you walked in." "I did," she said, "but I wanted to see if you'd remember on your own." "I'm sorry I didn't." "Don't be, it's been 8 years, we were terrified, I remember more than I thought I did. Now that I'm looking at you, really looking, I can see it. You look different but the same, does that make sense?" "It does." We stayed at the restaurant for 2 more hours. The server stopped checking in and just let us talk. We caught up on everything we'd missed in 8 years: her career, mine, the relationships that hadn't worked, the cities we'd seen, the books we'd read. But somehow we kept circling back to that flight, those 30 minutes when we held hands and thought we might die. "Can I tell you something strange?" Harper said as we paid the bill and got up to leave. "Please." "I spent years wondering what happened to you, if you were okay, if you ever thought about that day." "All the time," I admitted, "more than I probably should have." "Why more than you should have?" "Because we were strangers, it was one moment. It seemed ridiculous to hold on to something so brief." Harper shook her head. "It wasn't ridiculous, we were vulnerable in a way most people never are." We walked out into the cool Philadelphia night. The street was quiet, a few people passing, distant traffic humming. "Can I walk you to your car?" I asked. "I took an Uber, but you can walk me while I wait for another one. Or I could drive you home." She smiled. "I'd like that." My car was parked 2 blocks away. We walked slowly, neither of us in any rush to end the night. The city felt softer somehow, like the edges had blurred. She gave me her address, a small neighborhood in Fishtown, about 15 minutes away. We drove in comfortable silence until Harper spoke again. "Can I tell you what I remember most about you?" "Please." "Your voice," she said. "How steady it was, how you kept talking even when I couldn't, like you knew that as long as I could hear you, I'd be okay." "I didn't know what else to do," I said. "I'm not great in crises, I just talk, I'm a lawyer, it's what I do." Harper laughed softly. "Well, it worked. I still hear your voice sometimes when I'm anxious or scared. I think about that day and it calms me down." I had to pause. "That's incredible and kind of overwhelming." "In the best way," she said. We stopped at a red light. I glanced at her. She was looking out the window, her reflection peaceful in the glass. "Can I ask you something now?" I said. "Fair's fair." "When you walked into the restaurant, you clearly recognized me. Why didn't you tell me right away?" "Because I wanted to see if the connection was still real, if it was more than just fear or adrenaline. I wanted to know if we'd still have chemistry in a normal moment without the chaos." She turned toward me, smiling softly. Even in the dim dashboard light, her eyes were warm. "And we do," she said, "even more now." The light turned green and I drove on. My heart was doing things I hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. "For what it's worth," I said, "I felt it too. The moment you walked in, I didn't know why, but there was something familiar, maybe some leftover sense memory from holding hands while plummeting toward Earth." She laughed softly. "Maybe, or maybe it's just you." We turned onto her street, a quiet row of houses under warm streetlights. I found a parking spot near her building and put the car in park, but neither of us moved. "So," I said, "this is the part where things could get awkward." "Do they have to?" "I don't know," I admitted. "What do we even do with this? The fact that we met in the most dramatic way possible, lost each other, and then somehow got set up by my sister 8 years later." She smiled. "We could see it as a sign." "You believe in signs?" "I believe in incredibly unlikely coincidences that might actually mean something." I laughed. "That's the most lawyer-type answer I've ever heard." "What do you believe in then?" she asked. Harper was quiet for a moment before saying, "I believe in second chances. I believe life sometimes gives people another shot at something they missed the first time." "And you think that's what this is?" "I don't know," she said softly, "but I'd like to find out." "So would I." She reached for the door handle, then paused. "Can I ask one more thing?" "Anything." "That day on the plane, after we landed and you were looking for me, what were you going to say if you'd found me?" I thought for a moment, trying to remember how I'd felt back then, realizing she was gone. "I was going to ask for your number," I said. "And then I was going to ask if I could take you to dinner just to make sure you were really okay, and maybe to see if what I'd felt during those 30 minutes was real or just the fear talking." "And now?" she asked. "Now I know it was real, and I'm asking again, can I see you?" She laughed. "You're literally seeing me right now." "You know what I mean." That real, unguarded smile spread across her face, the one I was already becoming addicted to. "Yes," she said softly, "I'd really like that tomorrow." Tomorrow, I said, smiling. We've already waited 8 years, I don't want to waste any more time. Deal, she said, opening the door, but this time I'm picking the place. She stepped out, then leaned back in. Thank you for tonight, for 8 years ago, and for being exactly who I remembered, but somehow even better. Thank you, I said, for giving me a second chance to do this right. You did it right the first time, she said with a small smile, you just didn't know it yet. She closed the door and walked toward her building. I watched until she was safely inside, then sat in my car for a long time trying to process everything that had just happened. My phone buzzed, a text from Kennedy. Well, how did it go? Is she perfect or is she perfect? I smiled and typed back. She's perfect, also we've met before, long story, call you tomorrow. Her reply came instantly. What, you can't just say that and not explain. Tomorrow, promise. I drove home through the quiet Philadelphia streets, replaying the whole night, the way Harper had looked at me when she asked if I remembered her, the instant of recognition that had finally clicked into place. When I got home, my phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. Hi, it's Harper. Kennedy gave me your number. Hope that's okay. I just wanted to say I'm really glad we found each other again. Sleep well. I saved her contact and typed back. More than okay, I'm glad too. See you tomorrow. Her response came seconds later. It's a date. The odds were astronomical, infinite decimals, the kind of coincidence that shouldn't happen, but it had. And sitting there in my apartment, looking at Harper's message glowing on my phone, I realized maybe some things aren't about probability at all. Maybe some connections are strong enough to survive impossible odds, to last through time, distance, and the chaos of two separate lives. Maybe some people are just meant to find each other, even if it takes 8 years, and a well-meaning sister who had no idea she was reuniting two people who once held hands at 30,000 feet, thinking they might die. The next morning, Kennedy called before I'd even finished my coffee. Explain, she demanded. What do you mean you've met before? I told her everything, the flight, the emergency landing, the 30 minutes of holding Harper's hand, and how she disappeared afterward. There was a long pause. Are you kidding me right now? I wish I was. Dylan, that's insane, that's movie-level coincidence. I know. And you had no idea, when I told you about her you never connected it. How could I said. You told me her name was Harper, that she was a vet and funny, you didn't mention she'd been on a flight with me 8 years ago where we both thought we might die. She never told me about that, Kennedy said. She knows I hate flying, she probably didn't want to freak me out. So she just recognized you when she walked in. Apparently, and she wanted to see if the connection was still real without the fear. Kennedy was quiet again. Was it? Yeah, I said softly, it was. Dylan, she said after a moment, I've known you your whole life, I've never heard you sound like this. Like what? Like you're happy, like you're excited, like something finally matters to you beyond work and your perfectly organized life. That's not fair, I said. It's completely fair, she teased. You've been on autopilot for years, now you sound awake. I thought about that, about how the last few years had just been routine, work, home, the occasional dinner with friends, nothing bad but nothing that really mattered either, just existing. Maybe I was, I said, but I'm not anymore. Are you seeing her again tonight? She's picking the place. Good, don't screw this up. I'll try not to. I mean it, Dylan, this is special, don't overthink it, don't lawyer it to death, just be present. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise, she said, you just never listened. After we hung up, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to Harper, to the way she smiled across the table, to that spark of recognition in her eyes when she said, You don't remember me, do you? At 6 p.m. a text came through. Meet me here at 7, dress casual, bring an open mind. The address was somewhere in South Philly, a place I'd never been. I arrived exactly at 7, lawyer punctuality dies hard, and found Harper waiting outside a small building with a hand-painted sign that read The Pottery House. Pottery, I asked. Pottery, she confirmed. Tell me, have you ever made anything with your hands besides legal arguments? Not really. Then tonight, she said smiling, you're going to learn. Inside, a dozen pottery wheels filled the bright open studio. A few people were already working, clay spinning under their hands. A woman in her 60s greeted us and led us to two wheels side by side. "I've never done this before," I admitted. Harper just smiled. "I know that's the point." "What's the point exactly?" "The point is that you overthink everything. You plan, you strategize, you try to stay in control, but pottery doesn't work that way. Clay has a mind of its own. You have to respond, adapt, let go. So you're trying to teach me a life lesson through pottery." "I'm just trying to get you to make a lopsided bowl and laugh about it." And that's exactly what happened. For the next hour, we sat at our pottery wheels, covered in clay, failing over and over, trying to create something that even remotely looked like pottery. My bowl collapsed 3 times. Harper's vase looked like it had survived a small disaster. But we laughed, really laughed. Especially when I got clay in my hair and Harper tried to help but only made it worse until we both looked like we'd been in a mud fight. "This is terrible," I said, staring at my uneven bowl. "It's perfect," Harper replied. "It's objectively awful." "It's perfectly awful, there's a difference." After class, we cleaned up as best we could and walked to a nearby taco place. Sitting by the window, eating tacos and sipping beer, we kept finding bits of clay in random spots and couldn't stop laughing. "Okay," I said finally, "I admit it, that was fun." "See, not everything has to be perfect." "Is that your life philosophy?" "It's my philosophy for most things. Perfection is boring, the best moments happen in the mess." Later, we wandered through South Philly past glowing row houses, quiet diners, corner stores. The city buzzed softly around us, but it felt like we were in our own world. Then Harper stopped walking. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Please." "I've thought about you so many times over the years, wondered where you were, who you became, and if you ever thought about me. I built this version of you in my head, someone who was kind to me when I needed it most. And I was scared that if I ever met you again, the real you wouldn't live up to that version." "And does he?" I asked. "He's better," she said with a small smile. "The version in my head was kind and steady, but the real you, you're funny, thoughtful, willing to make terrible pottery and laugh about it. You're someone I want to know, not just someone I'm grateful to." I didn't know what to say. Gratitude, hope, something dangerously close to falling, it all mixed together, so I just said, "Can I see you again tomorrow?" She smiled. "You're seeing me right now." "You know what I mean." "Yes, tomorrow and the day after that, and the day after that if you want." "I want." We walked back to my car. When I dropped her off, I walked her to her door. "Thank you for tonight," I said, "for teaching me that not everything has to be perfect." "You're welcome," she said softly. "Now go before I do something impulsive like kiss you on a second date." "Would that be so bad?" "No, but I'm trying to pace myself." "I can wait one more day," I said. But as I drove home, I realized I didn't want to wait, not anymore. I'd spent years overthinking, planning, playing it safe. But Harper was right, perfection was boring. The best decision I'd ever made had been impulsive, reaching for a stranger's hand at 30,000 feet. So I turned the car around, heart pounding, not with fear but certainty. I knew exactly what I wanted. I pressed her buzzer, a pause. "Dylan," she said, "did you forget something?" "Yeah," I said, "something important." The door buzzed open. I took the stairs 2 at a time. She stood in the doorway, hair slightly messy, looking both surprised and hopeful. "What did you forget?" she asked. "I forgot that I don't want to wait, that I've already waited 8 years. I forgot that the best things I've ever done were unplanned, and I forgot that you said you were trying not to do something impulsive." "I did say that." "So I'm doing it for you." "Doing what?" she asked. Instead of answering, I cupped her face and kissed her. For a second she froze, then melted into it. Her hands grabbed my jacket, pulling me closer. The kiss was everything a first kiss should be: urgent, soft, desperate, gentle. It tasted like possibility, like second chances, like 8 years of waiting without knowing. The best things, I realized, happen in the mess, in the unexpected. I didn't know what would happen next with Harper, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't planning. I was just there, present, letting the story unfold. And somehow, that felt more right than anything else. Have you ever reconnected with someone after years apart, only to find the connection even stronger the second time. Share your story in the comments below. And if this story about second chances and embracing life's beautiful mess touched your heart, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more heartfelt stories every day.